Hello everyone, this is Raj Goswami, your new economics faculty for class 12 economics. Today we are gonna begin with the very fast chapter of macroeconomics, and the name of the chapter is Introduction to Macroeconomics. As we have already studied, you have already studied in class 11 that it's a totally different branch of the subject economics. Why it is a totally different subject branch? Because the subject matters that we study in this particular book or in this particular subject is totally different from the rest. Okay, so why there is a need to study macroeconomics? Okay, we'll come to that later, but prior to that we should come and know that basically what macroeconomics is. Okay, macroeconomics is nothing but it's a different branch of economics which basically studies, which basically examines the economic variables or economic issues in an aggregate level or economic problems of an economy as a whole. Okay, just see the literal definition of what is macroeconomics is. Okay, it's very basic to what we say as studying the whole economic process of an economy as a whole. We don't study here the individual variables. We don't consider here the individual behavior of a consumer. We don't consider here the individual behavior of a farm. Instead, we study every economic variable. Economic variable means the production, say the consumption, the income. So what all these economic variables are being studied, in an aggregate manner. So whenever we study economic variables in aggregates, that particular subject is nothing but macroeconomics. Is that clear? So macroeconomics is a different branch of economics emerged after the Great Depression of 1929 to 1933 or 36. It has been acquired at that time, where including North America and some European countries, they faced a really great depression. Okay, the unemployment rate was high. Okay, the aggregate demand in the economy was nearly about 3 to 4%. The economy was suffering. At that time, one of the prominent British economists named John Maynard Keynes. John Maynard Keynes came up with the idea of macroeconomics with the publication of a book, and the task is yours to find out the name of the book with which macroeconomists emerged as a different branch of economics. I'll give you a hint. The book was published in 1933. Okay, and the author is none other than John Maynard Keynes. He is a British prominent economist. Okay, so in this very chapter, in this the first chapter of macroeconomics of class 12, we are gonna study what? We are gonna study the basic concept of macroeconomics. Okay, we are gonna study about the different type of goods such as consumption good, capital good, final good. Okay, intermediate good. Then we are gonna study some variables like stock variables. What is stock variable? What is a flow variable? Then we are gonna study about what is investment. Okay, this is the most burning, I think, topic that you are very ardent to know about. Okay, so very curious to know about. So here comes the investment. So in investment, you have to focus on the gross investment as per your syllabus is concerned, and then you should know about the topic that what is depreciation, and then the circular flow of income. So this is all about that you will have to study in this very first chapter of macroeconomics. So let's begin with the very first chapter, the very first topic. Okay, what is macroeconomics? What is macroeconomics? I have already mentioned what is macroeconomics. It's nothing but a branch of economics that deals with the behavior and performance of an economy as a whole. That means it studies every single economic variable, in an aggregate manner. So basically, generally, if I consider this macroeconomics as a distinctive subject, then what are the central issues? Okay, what are the central issues that studies, macroeconomics of an economy as a whole? The issues are employment of an economy. Okay, the growth rate of the national output or the GDP. Okay, are you getting my point? So you shouldn't have any doubt with regard to this, that what is macroeconomics as a totally different subject. Now let us focus on that. Okay, we know what is macroeconomics as a different branch of economics. Okay, but now the most important thing is what we are gonna study under this book. Okay, what we are gonna study, that means what are the subject matters of macroeconomics. The first subject matter, look at this point. The first is the theory of employment. Theory of employment. Under this book we are going to study about the level of employment or the employment generation and all these things. Next comes the theory of national income determination. That means under this distinct branch of economics, we are going to study how the national income of a nation, of an economy is determined. Next is the general pricing. General pricing means the overall pricing of goods and services in an economy. That means whether the economy is in a condition of inflation or whether the economy is in a condition of deflation. Okay, that's the third subject matter of macroeconomics. Let's move on to the next, that is theory of money. Okay, the most important subject, how money is circulated in an economy. What is the role of bank? What is the role of RBI? We are going to study about that. And at the last but not the least, the theory of international trade. I already told you in I think before starting these things, that every nation in this economy has a limitation, and that limitation is nothing but the limited resources that you have. But our needs are more than what we have, right? Our needs are more than the resources that we are blessed with. So in order to sustain our needs, in order to complete our needs, what we have to do, we have to borrow, we have to buy. Okay, we have to import some of the goods that we don't produce here, or import some of the resources that we don't have there. For example, we import oil from Russia, right? Oil from Russia. Why this is so? This is so because there is a scarcity of these petroleum product in our country, so there is a need to import this for the needs and wants of our nation. Okay, so how do we import? We import through trade. But when that trade when that trade is executed between two different nations, that type of trade is known as international trade. Okay, so we are gonna study about this. So these are the 5 most important or the vital component subject matters of macroeconomics. Is that clear? I guess so, because it's not that tough, and moreover students like you who are very brilliant in understanding, they don't need to go further. Now let us come to the final topic, not the final actually, that's the next topic, that is what are the types of goods? What are the types of goods that are being produced in an economy? Okay, we know that there are goods like, okay, let's say chips is a good, iPhone is a good, laptop is a good, a pen is a good, this LED board is a good. So every single good that we produce, okay, it has a specific utility. But don't go to that side. Generally whatever goods, when we say goods, that means it's a collection of all the goods. Okay, so generally goods are classified, okay, into 4 different types. The first one is final goods, the second one is intermediate goods, the third one is consumer good, and the fourth one is capital good. Okay, so if you want a basic definition or a proper definition of what a good is, then I have already mentioned a good is nothing but an item that provides utility. Utility for what? Utility to satisfy your needs, satisfy your wants. Okay, so after that, there are 4 basically major types of goods that we have in an economy. Okay, the first one is final good, the second one is intermediate good, the third one is nothing but consumer good, and the fourth one is the very most important one, is the capital good. So these are the 4 types of goods that we have or that we produce in an economy. Let us look at one by one. Let us look at every one of them one by one. Okay. The first is final good. Can you have any idea? Like, if you don't need to elaborate it to that extent, if you go through literally, you can see a word that is final. What is final? Final means that's the full stop. There is a full stop. Okay, there is nothing beyond that limit. That is what we call as, okay, full and final. So final goods is nothing but that type of goods, or it's a type of good that refers to a good that, okay, that has crossed the boundary line of production. Final goods are those goods which have already crossed the boundary line of production. That means no additional value can be added. Okay, no additional value can be added to this particular good. So whenever we say final good are referred to as goods that do not require further processing. That means that do not require any further value to be added to them. Okay, they are complete. They are now what? They have already crossed boundary line of production. Okay, they have already crossed the boundary line of production, and the next is further value can't be added to them. Okay, final goods are those type of goods which have already crossed the boundary line of production. Okay, and there are not even a single chance where you can add further value to that good. Are you getting my point? What I'm saying is that type of good which do not require any further processing. Okay, that is perfectly ready for further consumption. Consumption by whom? Consumption by two different key elements of an economy. The first is consumer, final consumer good, and the next is final producer good. So let us look at both of them one by one. What is final consumer good? Final consumer goods, it's that particular final good which is ready to be used by consumer for satisfying their needs and wants, whereas the final producer good is that type of good where the good is ready for further use in production units or farms, for production units or farms for further production of goods and services. So let's take an example. What is a final consumer good? Let's say this LED. This LED is a final consumer good. We are taking the utility from this board, but whereas the machine that manufactures this LED board is a final consumer good. Okay, and that particular machine, what is that particular use of that particular machine is nothing but an entrepreneur or the firm or the producer will buy that machine to produce more of these LED boards. Is that clear? So before moving to the next type of good, we should know that basically whenever we say that expenditure on final goods, okay, expenditure on final goods, that means what are the total expenditure that we have incurred on final goods. Then how do we calculate this? Expenditure of final goods is calculated by adding two different expenditures. What are the two different expenditures? The first one is the consumption expenditure. Consumption expenditure here refers to the expenditure that have been incurred by the consumer in order to consume the final consumer goods. But okay, the investment expenditure is that particular expenditure which has been incurred by the producer or the entrepreneur, okay, in the process of buying or in the process of buying the final producer good with the view of producing more of the goods and services. So whenever we say total expenditure on final goods, what do we say? We say that total consumption expenditure. Consumption expenditure refers to the total expenditure incurred on final consumer good plus total investment expenditure. And here investment expenditure refers to the total amount of expenditure that have been incurred for final producer good. So when you add both of them, what do you get? You get the total expenditure that has been incurred on final goods. Is that clear? I hope this is clear, because this is not a very, tough thing to understand. Let us move to the next type of good, that is intermediate goods. That is intermediate goods. Intermediate. Just look at this word, intermediate. So, economics is very literal in meaning. If you go through every single word in a very literal manner, then also you will be able to understand some 40 to 50% of general economics. Okay, so just look at this word. What is intermediate? Intermediate is something that is stuck in between. That is stuck in between. Stuck in between, that's a literal meaning. But if you consider this, okay, in terms of economics, then we say intermediate goods are those type of goods which are within the boundary line of production, and at the same time, okay, value can be added to this good. Okay, the extra value can be added to this good. Let us go through the definition that we have. Intermediate good is a product used to produce a final good or a finished product. That means this is not the finished or the final good. Okay, this is a good which is within the boundary line of production and value can be added still. Okay, that type of good is known as intermediate good. So before moving to further, you need to note two most important facts about intermediate good and classification of goods. The first one, expenditure on intermediate good by producer during a financial year or accounting year is known as intermediate consumption. Okay, whatever expenditure that we incur or that we make in the consumption of intermediate goods in a financial year, okay, that particular expenditure is known as intermediate consumption. Here I have used one, technical term or economical term, that is financial year or accounting year. What do you mean by this? Okay, every time you might have used this word, right? That in a financial year. Financial year is not an ordinary year which starts from 1st of January till 31st of December. Okay, whenever we say financial year, it implies from when? From 1st of April. From 1st of April to 31st of March. Remember, 31st of March. This year, this particular duration of time is known as financial year. So whenever an expenditure on intermediate good is undertaken by a producer during a financial year or an accounting year, is both the same thing. Okay, that particular expenditure is known as intermediate consumption. Okay, next point to be noted, okay, is, okay, how do we classify these different type of goods? Okay, so what is the criteria behind, what is the main basis through which the types of good are being classified? So the end use of the good, remember, this is nothing but, okay, the classification is done on the principal basis of end use of the good. Okay, so end use of the good is the principal basis of classifying the goods into categories like final good or intermediate good. Okay, it is the principle of end use of the good which basically helps us in classifying the goods into intermediate goods as well as final goods. Is that clear? I hope is that clear. It's not a very tough thing for you guys. You guys are like brilliant like anything. So now we have studied what is final good. We have studied already what is intermediate goods. We are aware of the fact that final good is something that is ready to be used by either by the producer or by the consumer. Okay, and we are aware of the fact too that intermediate good is that good which is within the boundary line of production and that we can add further value to it. Okay, now we are going to study a type of good which we say as consumer good or final consumer good. What is it? Go through the literal meaning. Don't need to understand economics a lot. What is consumer? The ones who consume the goods and services. What is good? Nothing but an item that has the utility. So what is the consumer good? A consumer good is a tangible. Okay, a consumer good is a tangible item which is ready to be used by its consumer. which is ready to be used by its consumer in order to satisfy their needs and wants. Simple. See the definition: any tangible commodity produced and subsequently purchased to satisfy the current wants and perceived needs of the buyer. Simple. There is nothing more to understand in this particular thing. Consumer good is nothing but an, a tangible item or a commodity that you can use for satisfying your want or the needs. Okay, but that can be used only by the consumer and in an act of consumption. Are you getting the point? That can be used in an act of consumption to satisfy your needs and wants. Okay, so basically there are different types of consumer goods. Okay, whenever we say consumer goods are being classified in 3 different types. What are the types? Let's look at it. The first one is durable good. What are the durable goods? Let's say an example. What is the example of durable good? A car, refrigerator. I don't know the spelling, sorry. Okay, let us go with a very simple language, that is fridge. Okay, a car, a fridge, or let us go with like AC. What is the non-durable goods? Non-durable goods are the food items that we consume. Okay, and the last is the services. So now you might have a question. What is this service? We are studying about goods, right? So why this service is included in the types of consumer good? Listen, I'll give you an example. Basically, I stay in Uzan Bazaar. Okay, I stay in Uzan Bazaar. My office is in Ganeshgudi. So the distance between these two places are approximately 6 kilometers. And I don't own any vehicle. So what do? For coming to this place, for coming to the place where I work, I took a bus. Okay, and that bus has a parent or concerning authority, that is ASTC, Assam State Transport Corporation. Okay, so I took a bus from Uzan Bazaar through the route of GS Road. I came to Ganeshgudi, and just because I used this bus, I gave a fare of rupees 15. But I didn't own that bus, right? I just used the service of this bus for getting or for coming to my working place with a fare of rupees 15. This is nothing but what? It's a service. Okay, whenever we consume, that's the consumption of service. Okay, that is intangible in nature. Okay, you cannot touch it, but you can consume it. You can consume it in an act of consumption. This is a very basic example of service consumption. I hope this is clear. You don't have any doubt with it. So what is consumer good? Consumer good is that commodity, tangible commodity, which is finally used by a consumer to satisfy his or her want or to complete his or her needs. There are 3 types of consumer goods: durable goods, non-durable goods, and services. Okay, what are the durable goods? Like car, fridge, AC, etc. Whatever you might think. What are the non-durable goods? Non-durable goods are the FMCG product, fast moving consumer goods. Okay, those goods are non-durable goods. What are the example? Let's say a packet of chips, okay, a packet of spices, cold drink, ice cream. These are non-durable goods. And then the services. This is the best example. Okay, so I don't think that you have any doubt with regard to this. Let's move to the next type of good, that is capital good. Okay, that is capital good. What a capital good is? Capital good are the assets used by producer in the course of producing their goods and services, and can include building, machinery, tools and equipment. Okay, so I have made it very clear, while studying that final good, that there are 2 different type of final good: the final consumer good, okay, that we have already studied, and then final producer goods. Okay, so capital good is a final producer good. Okay, so what capital good exactly is? Capital good is nothing but that good, okay, which is used by producer in the course of production of goods and services. Okay, and what are the example of basically what are capital goods? It's nothing but building, machinery, tools, equipments, etc. Okay, but there is a point to note down, and the point is all the capital goods are producers good. Okay, all these are producers good, but all the producers good are not capital goods, because producer goods includes both intermediate goods and capital goods. Who is the person, or who is the particular individual who adds the value that needed to be added in intermediate goods? It's not the consumer, it's the producer. So we consider every capital good to be a producer good, but every producer good is not capital good, because producer good includes both the goods. The first is intermediate goods. Okay, it's the producer who adds the value that needed to be added to intermediate goods, and the next is the capital good, which is used in the process of further production of goods and services. Is it clear? I hope this is very clear, because this is not a very tough topic to understand. These are some basic concept of macroeconomics. Keep revising it for the first class till here only. Keep revising. All the very best and take care. Bye bye.